have we learned from the coronavirus pandemic? How should we go forward in the post-COVID-19 world? Exclusive interview with Nobel Peace Laureate, Professor Muhammad Yunus and Dr. Faiz Shah, Yunus Thailand Foundation.
The world is facing crisis of COVID-19, but with crisis, there can be an opportunity as well. And right now, there is an attempt to lead a global dialogue of reconstruction the world in the age of post-COVID-19. Particularly, Yunus Center coined the term, no going back to the old system. And Thai PBS World Tonight, we'd like to follow up on this discussion in which we actually had this discussion about 3 months ago. So let me introduce our very special guest tonight, Nobel Peace Laureate, Professor Muhammad Yunus, founder of Grameen Bank and chairman of Yunus Center, and Dr. Faiz Shah, president, Yunus Thailand Foundation and director of Yunus Center, Asian Institute of Technology.
So tonight we will try to find out whether we are any nearer to the so-called brave new world that Professor Yunus was talking about during our conversation 3 months ago. So before we look to the future, Professor Yunus, I want to start by asking you whether you think the world has learned anything from the pandemic. I mean, judging from the ways that governments and societies handle the pandemic and trying to cope with the new normal in their ways of life.
Yeah, the pandemic has taught us many things. If you're not taking any notice of it, if you're not learning from it, we must be blind, must be hard of hearing, because it reveals all the weaknesses in our society, in our politics, in our international relations, and so on, in every aspect of it. If you look at the international aspect of it, the multilateralism kind of came out as an empty word, because when the big common enemy came to the world was not united. World became very divided, even attacking the very global institution which is at the forefront of fighting the common enemy. So we reduced its capacity and it challenged its financial power by withdrawing money from it, by withdrawing recognition from it, by starting investigation against it, and so on. So we shown the multilateralism, how empty it was at that moment particularly, and how we became nationalism became our main focus, or even tribalism. We became tribal. We're trying to protect our own tribe rather than move into other one. The second one is about how poor people live. Suddenly, with the little change in the economic system, the first one to drop out from the system is a major number of people, millions and billions of people who lived on a daily income, and saw that economics of all those glory of prosperity and all the expansion of the economy, growth of the economy, they were just hanging on. The little disruption, they started falling down. So you see migrant workers going home, walking hundreds of miles in India and other places and so on. So we saw how the poverty is, suddenly poverty jumped up in every single country because they don't have any income, they don't have any savings, they don't have any way to survive. So this is another one that we saw how meaningless the whole system is. The third one I would just mention, it also brought us an opportunity that we don't have to go back to the world that we are coming from. The world that we are coming from before pandemic was not a good world. It's a terrible world. It's a world which is waiting for a major disaster, finishing us all on the planet. So I said, as if we are in a fast train, in a bullet train, rushing to our death, rushing to our disaster. And that's where we were before the pandemic began, because the global warming is going to finish us in a few years if we don't stop it, because it's coming in a big way. And the global wealth concentration is making it impossible for the economy to function, people to function. And this is again a disaster. It's an explosive point we are coming. And then massive unemployment because of the artificial intelligence. So that's the world of terrible future. And we are moving in a bullet train to reach that goal of ending our life abruptly. So I said, pandemic is done, stop the train. And suddenly we see now we can get off the train.
All right.
And now the question I'm raising, should we go back to the train and go back to the first train again, to the disaster, death, or we look for a new life? This is an opportunity for us. We can go in a different direction with a different train, which will take us to a beautiful world, beautiful life for us, without global warming, without wealth concentration, without massive unemployment. It's possible if we act right now. This is the time for action.
Dr. Shah, closer to home in Thailand, you see signs that we in Thailand are learning anything from the pandemic?
I think, as Professor Yunus has pointed out, we also learned similar lessons. A lot of people fell through the cracks. We see that happening. We see that a lot of our mainstay businesses in Thailand, tourism, hospitality, transportation, healthcare, these are our, and fresh produce exports, have all suffered because the people that man these businesses now no longer have the kind of stability, economic stability that Professor Yunus talks about. The other thing that we've seen in Thailand also is that because the kind of economic pillars we stand on, other than light engineering and export, this is going to be the state of affairs for some time. So we have a long distance to cover. So in a way, the train has stopped, but we need to find quickly the destination we need to get off at as well. So this I think in Thailand also, the situation resonates strongly with what Professor Yunus has just pointed out. But we've also seen the good side of humanity as we all see people helping each other and so on. So that is where I see, as Professor Yunus, the hope in humanity that we need to quickly build on.
And Professor Yunus, you try to encourage people to do social business during this COVID-19 pandemic. But in reality, people must have argued that it's so difficult to do any kind of business at the moment. So far, what's your take after you try to encourage people to do so?
Well, whenever you start a business, you have a choice whether you want to do business to make money for yourself like you did in the past, or you want to do business to make a new world. And if you want to do a new world, then you'll be looking for another option, the social business to solve problems. So this is one. Another big question during the pandemic is, you hear everywhere, and the newspaper are full of those reports, that how much money is being reserved, is being already allocated for bailout packages, so that you can restart the engine, restart the train to go back to their old destination. So there's lots of money available already. Some country has billions of dollars, some country has trillions of dollars. They're already reserved, packaged, waiting to be spent. I'm saying, would you spend this money to take this train to the old destination? Or you would like to use this money to build a train to go to a new destination? So the money is not an issue. The issue is where we put the money. We don't want to put the money into the fossil fuel industry, for example. We don't want to revive them. Why should we revive them? We know they are the one who is killing this country, killing all the world. You remember this young people, the teenagers in all our families, marching on the street before the pandemic came. They called themselves Fridays for Future, and they were blaming their parents, they are blaming their grandparents for being such a irresponsible person, that they created a world where young people, the teenagers, don't have a future. You have taken away, you have stolen their future away. So that now we cannot be blamed for that. We say we are building the future for you. So the money is here, we want to spend the money. So this is a question, this is an issue that I'm raising. It's not a new money, it's a question of using the money in the right direction. So there you need social businesses. You need to redesign the whole financial structure, because the financial structure is responsible for wealth concentration. Financial structure is responsible for supporting the AI, the artificial intelligence, and the artificial intelligence is responsible for financing the fossil fuel industry, financing the plastic industry. So why don't we redesign it? Redesign it in a social business way. Then we go in the right direction.
So since we are on this topic of social business, I would like to go to Dr. Shah. You have been here in Thailand for a long time now, trying very hard to promote social business in Thailand. So how successful have you been?
Actually, in the few months before the pandemic, we were, in fact, last year, when you recall, you interviewed Professor Yunus in June last year, where we had the Social Business Day. That had a very strong outreach impact. And we had a lot of very interesting queries on this. So we are now working with a number of Thai partners, including some very famous and large Thai businesses, to identify social business opportunities in Thailand. But more than that, COVID has also helped in somehow focusing attention on the social business way of things. Since COVID, we've had more inquiries than before, from the southern provinces, particularly from NGOs and also from international NGOs, where they've sought advice from the Yunus Center in Dhaka, and of course, since we do our best to connect that, to see how we can reach out. But I just want to reflect a kind of the situation in Thailand on investments. This morning, we found that there are 10 major investment opportunities in Thailand that the government is promoting. If you look at it, it's in rubber or medical gloves, pharmaceuticals, light engineering, courier services, etc. Now, if you look at these 10 employment opportunities, other than the ones that require industrial backbones or strong industrial competencies, couriers, cleaning, transportation, these are the areas where social business models can very easily be implemented without too much investment. So I think there is this opportunity. The government has identified labor-intensive industries as possible, directing possibly the $12 billion that the Royal Thai government has allocated to recovery. So this is a good sign. If the government meets up, builds the people-intensive businesses as social businesses, there is a higher chance of sustainability. These jobs will stay because these services will stay. And these people control that resource, which is their own labor and manpower and ideas, and there is a higher chance of sustainability. But if you put money into, say, goods and services that have short life, then when we get out of this into a more normal pace of life in the world, we will again lose jobs. So I think this whole idea that Professor Yunus has presented is actually practicable in Thailand. Use social business philosophies to include people in their own livelihoods. And I might also, and nobody needs reminding, but this is also in line with His late Majesty Raman IX's philosophy of sufficiency. So there is a lot of intersects here.
Professor Yunus, you mentioned many times that you'd like people to abandon old trains. So far, are people ready to really abandon old train of the old system?
Building a new path is hard work. It's not easy. Going back to the old life, old world is easy. So you have to decide whether you go back to your comfort zone, personal comfort zone, but sure enough to end in disaster, end in death. The clear death ultimate. So it's a death versus new life. So you have to see whether you can compromise and say, well, death is not in my lifetime, maybe my future, but it is there, it's waiting. Nobody denies that global warming is not going to kill us all. They all say we are in the direction of that ultimate destination because it's growing worse and worse every day. It's not improving. So either we go back to finish the job, end ourselves, or this gives us an enormous opportunity to pick our own path. So we have to redesign the thinking process. And this is all about personal thinking. What do I do? How do I select it? And there are many issues in the thinking of economic issues. Like all these people, the migrant workers, the daily income earners, the people who sell food in the street, people who pick up things on the street, daily income earner. They are known as informal sector in economics. I said, that's a terrible name. The economists just carelessly pasted their name in their book that it is informal sector, meaning we have nothing to do with them. We are only for the formal sector, formal labor, formal business, and so on. So informal sector doesn't come to our consideration. I said, that's a very wrong idea. You misunderstood people. This is not an informal sector. This is micro-entrepreneurial sector. All these people are taking care of themselves. And pandemic shown that they were earning their living, suddenly they stopped. That's why they are helpless. They were not complaining about anything. They are just doing their thing on the street side, on the cooking food, selling fruits, and selling vegetables, catching fish. This is their job. They do that. They never complain. But suddenly, pandemic took it all away. Suddenly shown that they were actually entrepreneurs. But we never cared for them. I said we should rename this sector. Informal sector should be renamed as a micro-entrepreneur sector. Then suddenly it becomes important. If it is micro-entrepreneur sector, where is your financial sector? Where is your policy sector? So I said, why don't this micro-entrepreneur sector covers about 70% of the population in countries like Bangladesh, India, maybe in Thailand, 70% of the population, but we ignore them. I said the labor sector, the labor has a Ministry of Labor. Every government has a Ministry of Labor. I said, where is the Ministry of Micro-Entrepreneurs to support them? These people who are working there, they need all the financial support, all the policy support, all the institutional support. Nothing exists. So the moment you recognize them in micro-entrepreneur sector, then you have the responsibility of doing policies and so on, creating ministries, creating agencies, and financial institutions in a big way, because most of these people dependent on loan sharking business. So that's what we are saying. It's not about money. It's about what we have in our mind. Right. If you have a right kind of thinking, we create the right kind of institutions and follow the new path.
Professor Yunus, I'm sure that one question that people certainly would want to ask is that, where is this nice new shining train that we're talking about? Is it already there, or does someone need to design it, build it and drive it?
Yes, somebody has to do that. You have to do it, I'll have to do it. And it's not somebody in some engineering university doing it. It's us. It's what we wish to do. That's what they create the path. If you don't want, it's not somebody just waiting for the train to come, me to get on. We are the people who have to build that train by changing our mind, by making sure that this is the kind of life we want. It's about the kind of thinking process that we cannot ignore, that the people have to die of corona virus or COVID-19, because we can create a absolutely new situation. Look at the vaccine itself, how selfish rich countries are, grabbing all the vaccines even before they are designed yet. Forget about marketing, it's not even produced yet. Just in the thinking process, in the research process, and they are paying billions of dollars to buy up all the future production of vaccine for corona. I said, is this the kind of thing that the world needs to do? I have been pleading and I've been making appeals throughout the world to make corona vaccine as a common good, so that no business will be owning the patent of this. It can be produced anywhere. It could be produced in Bangkok, it could be produced in Dhaka, it could be produced in Kuala Lumpur, wherever. You have the facility and you produce it. You don't have to go and beg to give the permission to produce it and pay enormous amount of money to get that permission. So you don't want to make money out of the life, giving the protection of the life of the people. So that corona vaccine has to become global common good and patent free. No business interest, no profit-making body should be owning this. So vaccine should be like sunshine. It should belong to everybody.
I understand that you are proposing a draft to be raised with the UN General Assembly on this issue of declaring vaccine a common global good. How close are you to that, doing that?
We sent out an appeal first, and I'm very happy. 153 very top people of the world, about 27 Nobel laureates and about 20 ex-presidents, former prime ministers, and film actors, celebrities, musicians. They signed that document. Everybody's saying that we all want corona vaccine to be a common good. So taking that basis of the appeal, now we have drafted a UN resolution and going to every single country, including Thailand, appealing to them, please be sponsor of it, because the countries have to be sponsor. Say that, yes, we are a sponsor to that, we believe in that. So we have enough sponsors, it goes into the General Assembly of the United Nations. If you have more countries supporting it, then it is approved. And then corona vaccine becomes a global good. Otherwise, it becomes a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar business for the rich companies. Only 6 companies in the world produce all the medicines, all the vaccines of the world. Something unbelievable how only few multinational companies can own this whole medical support for the people. So why don't we create social business pharmaceutical company? This is an issue that we are raising. Also, after this corona vaccine, we will heading for creating social business pharmaceutical company so that we can produce medicine and make it available to people at the cost, not making enormous money out of it. Because people need medicine, but they cannot afford those medicines. It's so expensive and become more and more expensive the more as you go along, because only one company owns a particular medicine and it will not let anybody else produce it. If you want to produce it, you have to have a license from them and pay enormous amount of money to get the license. So we want to change that by creating social business pharmaceutical company. We want to create social business banking company. We want to create social business investment company. We want to create social business insurance companies because there's a huge lot of money. Simply, it is going into money-making people, not to the common people for serving them. So this is the direction that we need to change. We are not saying all those businesses disappear overnight. We are not saying that. We said we have enough resources, enough idea to create parallel business so that we can become a parallel business to compete with the conventional businesses and do better for the people who have never been served before in an affordable way so that they can have a better life for themselves.
Dr. Shah, what's the contribution on behalf of Thailand to support this UN resolution to have global vaccine to fight COVID-19?
Well, we are part of the outreach from Dhaka. We are reaching out to the Royal Thai government. We are reaching out to the ASEAN community in Thailand. And this year, as you know, Thailand has a prominent role in ASEAN. So hopefully we'll start receiving some positive feedback from that. We do understand that even though we are talking to ASEAN in Thailand, they will still have to go to their own capitals for consultation. So we're trying to get a two-pronged approach. Dhaka is writing directly to governments, and we're also writing through our ASEAN representatives so that there's a momentum that can build. But I'm also quite certain that Professor Yunus's appeal has reached the right ears. It's gotten across, and we are looking to a very favorable response from the Royal Thai government, hopefully.
Dr. Yunus, I agree with you that
Yes.
Building a new world certainly requires a collective effort. Everyone has to be involved. But at the end of the day, I mean, some kind of leadership must be necessary, right? But do you look at any particular countries or groups of countries that may be in a position to take the lead in that direction?
In bits and pieces, it's not yet a very strong leadership and a global way. France has been a very active supporter of social businesses. They have taken lead in making Paris Olympic 2024 to make it a social business Olympic. They made a big decision. The president of the country is involved, mayor of Paris is involved, and all the top people in Paris involved in making this sports event in 2024 to make it a social business. They call it social business Olympic. So this is a big step. And there are many other organizations, business houses like Danone, like Veolia, like many others, banks, Crédit Agricole, all in France. They all created social businesses along with their conventional businesses. They created social business not just for Bangladesh, which they have done. They're also doing social business for France. So they created social business for France. And many of the universities there have created Yunus Social Business Center. Of course, you have the AIT Bangkok has a social business center, and several other universities have social business centers in Thailand, and many more universities. So this is the way the transformation of young people's mind, that yes, this is the direction. So you said how it will be done, who will provide the leadership? Young people will provide the leadership. Is the conscious leaders of the businesses will give leadership. When we have the social business day in Bangkok, many important business leaders participated, not just to make a speech and walk away. the entire period working with us and continuing with us. And Faiz Shah, Professor Faiz Shah can mention who are these people who have been doing that, not because they had anything to gain from us, but because they felt this is an important thing for their own nation, for their future of their nation, for the young people. So they came forward, and we still continue to work together. So this is how it spreads. And now it's in many countries. In India, there are big companies like Tata company. They are very much involved with us. Tata Trust is very much involved with us. One of the signatory was the Ratan Tata himself for the vaccine appeal. He was one of the first to sign this document. And Narayan Murthy from India, he's one of the top business person in India. He came up and said, I'll sign it. And he's very active in supporting that. So many business people signed it, many business leaders like Richard Branson and many others, Guilherme from Brazil, all the business people, they are very active supporters of the idea of social businesses. So I say it's gathering momentum, but the pandemic has given us an opportunity to take a bigger step, because they were doing, among many things, they were doing it. Today, it's such a crisis. It's not among many things. This becomes the central focus to save the planet from the disaster that we are heading for, unless we do that. So we want to shift that entire direction of the train and go in a different direction. So need a concerted effort, and I hope we'll get it. And I'm very happy that Thailand is taking a leadership role in that.
Dr. Shah, I mean, in Thailand, as you know, the power of young people has become more and more significant, that you might have witnessed, right? But how can we harness this power so that the young people can be a contributing force in helping us reach this brave new world that we're talking about?
Right. Well, young people, as you've often heard Professor Yunus say, are our future. So our biggest investment needs to be in young people. So almost now 86 universities, Professor Yunus, have Yunus Social Business Center. So we're expanding the outreach and the message of social business in educational institutions at a much faster pace now. This coincides with a growing awareness, thanks to social media, thanks to the information revolution, thanks to this instant connectivity that young people have. It coincides with the realization among young people that the old ways did not really benefit anyone. The old word, as Professor Yunus said, we're being blamed, our generation is being blamed for not looking after the world and leaving a nicer world for our children. So young people are realizing that. Now they ask, what is an alternative? And so we like to show to them that social business is one powerful alternative. It might not be the only one, of course, yeah, but it's a very powerful one, and it's a one that's been demonstrated in more than 30 countries, in dozens of businesses. So maybe if you had asked this question maybe 10 years before, when we were just 1 or 2 social business centers, we might not have examples to show. But now in the last decade, we are actually able to demonstrate to young people that whereas you've learned to move and live in a certain kind of a world, here is another world that is available and ready for you. So just a couple of days ago at Chulalongkorn University, I happened to be part of a group of teachers who were talking to young people who had ideas for social businesses. And they were connecting it to Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, which, as you know, Professor Yunus has been one of the first advocates. So there is an awareness that social problems and solutions to those problems can be brought together through enterprise, through business solutions. So I think that's already a step forward from a few years ago. And as we build momentum, as more young people change their thinking towards entrepreneurship and towards social business, that cycle will begin. And I'd also like to perhaps mention that for the first time, a number of our university partners are getting together to create courses, to create programs that students can actually take in college and learn about social business. And the IIT is now working on the first social business master's degree, which we hope to roll out very soon. So that allows students the avenue to acquire the skill and the overview of what they want to learn to create this new business, social business alternative.
All right.
Okay. So that brings us to the end to our special program tonight with very great discussion with Professor Yunus and Dr. Faiz Shah. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for keeps the world moving even though we are facing crisis of COVID-19, especially to encourage the whole world of going back to the old systems.